A lion with a human head stands guard in the desert sands. For thousands of years, cultures across the globe have filled their stories with beings that are part human and part animal. These are not random monsters from forgotten dreams. They are a sophisticated symbolic language, and by the end of this exploration, you will be able to decode their hidden meanings yourself. We will uncover why a bull-headed man was trapped in a labyrinth and what a serpent with a human face can teach us about the nature of power. These creatures hold a mirror to our deepest fears, our highest aspirations, and our most ancient understanding of the world. What is the first mythical beast that comes to your mind? Carl Jung believed that beneath our personal thoughts and memories lies a shared ocean of human experience, a collective unconscious. Within this deep well reside universal patterns, or archetypes, which are the fundamental blueprints for the characters and stories that appear across all cultures. The hybrid beings we find in myth are not random inventions. They are the most vivid expressions of these archetypes, giving them a face and a form we can understand. The Minotaur is not just a monster in a maze. It is the embodiment of the shadow, the powerful and untamed part of ourselves that we often lock away. A werewolf is not merely a man who changes shape. It represents our deep-seated fear of losing control to our primal instincts. By fusing human and animal, these myths create a powerful shorthand for the internal struggles every person faces. They make the abstract battles within our own minds tangible and unforgettable. This shared psychological language explains why a story from ancient Greece can feel so strangely familiar to someone today. It is because these creatures are speaking directly to the archetypes we all carry within us. The Sphinx and the Lamassu present a powerful, almost serene vision of control. But what happens when that balance between human reason and animal power shatters? This brings us to the second hidden logic, where these hybrids embody our most profound fears. The very same fusion used to symbolize dominion can also represent the terrifying loss of it. Consider the werewolf, a figure found in countless cultures. This is not a ruler commanding a beast. It is a man becoming the beast, a visceral expression of our fear that the civilized self is only a thin veneer. Under the right pressure, perhaps under the full moon's pull, that control can vanish, and the primal instincts we've worked so hard to suppress can break free. This is the shadow self Jung identified, but here it is not locked in a labyrinth. It is loose, unpredictable, and hunting in our own forests. The Minotaur itself, while trapped, represents a similar dread, the monstrous consequence of an unnatural union, a perpetual reminder of what can be created when boundaries are transgressed. These creatures give a tangible form to our anxiety about chaos, about the wild not outside the city walls, but lurking within us all. And this fear is not limited to the forests of Europe or the labyrinths of Crete. It finds a chilling parallel in the serpentine deities of the Americas. Yet this fear of the beast within was not confined to the individual. Societies projected their deepest anxieties onto a grander scale, creating monsters that personified the consequences of breaking sacred laws. In ancient Greece, the Erinyes or Furies were terrifying goddesses of vengeance, often depicted with snakes coiled in their hair or even with serpentine limbs themselves. They were not mindless monsters. They were the living embodiment of a guilty conscience, the inescapable pursuers who would haunt anyone who shed kindred blood. Their hybrid form was a perfect symbol for this. The human element gave them a relentless, intelligent purpose, while the serpentine features connected them to the ancient, chthonic forces of the earth and the primal demand for justice. They were the ultimate cautionary tale, giving a horrifying face to the social and spiritual chaos that erupted when the most fundamental taboos were violated. These myths externalized the internal turmoil of guilt and the societal fear of moral collapse, showing that the true monster was often the consequence of one's own actions. But if these creatures can embody our darkest fears and most savage instincts, what happens when the very same fusion of human and animal is used to represent the pinnacle of divinity and cosmic order? This invites us to examine the opposite side of the coin, where hybrid forms become symbols of the noble and the divine. While the Furies gave monstrous form to our fears, the very same fusion of human and animal could be sculpted into beings of profound benevolence and cosmic authority. This third principle reveals hybrid forms as the ultimate symbols of divine power and supernatural guardianship. These are not monsters of chaos, but architects of order, whose combined natures allow them to bridge the world we know and the realms beyond. In Hindu tradition, the god Ganesha, with his wise elephant head upon a human form, is the beloved remover of obstacles. His unique body is a perfect emblem of his role, merging the immense strength and memory of an elephant with the intellect and compassion of a human, creating a divine guide who can clear any path. Similarly, the Garuda, a magnificent being part man and part eagle, serves as the celestial mount for the god Vishnu. This form symbolizes a power that transcends both earth and sky, a divine speed and perspective that can traverse the entire cosmos. The logic is mirrored across the world. In ancient Egypt, Anubis, the jackal-headed god, watched over the delicate rituals of the afterlife. His choice of form was deeply practical, yet profoundly spiritual. Jackals were often observed at the edges of cemeteries, and by adopting this visage, Anubis became the ultimate guardian of the threshold, a deity intrinsically linked to the protection of the journey into the next world. These composite beings are more than just gods, they are living concepts. Their hybrid nature makes them the perfect intermediaries, their very bodies illustrating a unique role in the cosmic order that could not be fulfilled by a purely human or purely animal form. This idea of the hybrid as a bridge to other realms finds one of its most universal expressions in the ancient figure of the shaman. This fluid identity stands in stark contrast to the rigid statues of gods and kings. For the shaman, the hybrid form is not a fixed state but a temporary, sacred passage. By wearing the antlers of a stag or the pelt of a bear, the practitioner seeks to transcend the human condition, borrowing the animal's unique strengths to navigate realms beyond ordinary perception. The stag's antlers become a living crown, connecting the shaman to the forest's wisdom and the cyclical rhythms of nature. The bear's immense power and deep hibernation offer a conduit to healing and knowledge of the unseen world. This is not a monstrous transformation but a deliberate act of spiritual travel, a way to retrieve lost souls, diagnose illness, or commune with ancestral spirits. The misunderstood figure of the skinwalker in some Native American traditions originates from this profound worldview, where the boundaries between human, animal, and spirit are understood as permeable. In this context, the therianthrope is a bridge, a living key that unlocks a deeper communion with the consciousness of the natural world. This ancient idea that we can learn from non-human minds resonates surprisingly with the grand tradition of classical philosophy. Think of Plato's allegory of the charioteer, where the human soul must guide two winged horses, one noble and one unruly, a powerful metaphor for our own internal struggle between reason and base desire. The shaman's journey and the philosopher's allegory, though worlds apart, both use the fusion of human and animal to map the terrain of the soul. So, if these forms can represent our inner demons, our highest gods, and our spiritual journeys, what happens when this ancient symbolic language is translated into the modern world? Yet this ancient symbolic language was not reserved only for gods and spirits. it was also a powerful tool for teaching, a way to package complex moral codes into unforgettable forms. This is the fifth hidden logic, where hybrid creatures become walking allegories, embodying the virtues and vices that every society must confront. The Centaurs of Greek myth are a perfect example. For the most part, these half-man, half-horse beings were depicted as savage and ruled by their base appetites, a clear representation of the internal conflict between our civilized intellect and our untamed physical desires. They were a warning of what happens when the animal within overpowers the human. Yet the myth also presents the noble centaur Chiron, a wise and compassionate mentor to heroes. Chiron subverts the archetype, showing that the goal is not to destroy the animal nature, but to integrate it, to achieve a harmonious balance where strength and wisdom can coexist. This dual portrayal offered a complete lesson, illustrating both the danger of surrendering to instinct and the noble potential of mastering it. Another powerful allegory is the Manticore, a creature from Persian lore that fascinated medieval European bestiaries. With the face of a man, the body of a lion, and the venomous tail of a scorpion, it was a walking emblem of deception. Its fair, human-like countenance was a lure, hiding a truly deadly and predatory nature. This creature taught a simple but vital lesson about the world, that a pleasing appearance can mask a dangerous intent. These stories were far more than simple entertainment. They were a primary method of enculturation, a way for communities to pass down essential social codes and philosophical ideas to listeners of all ages. By wrapping these lessons in the skin of a fantastical beast, the message became visceral, emotional, and impossible to forget. The logic was deeply intertwined with the natural world, drawing on observable animal traits to give abstract concepts a tangible form. The lion's body symbolized brute force, the scorpion's tail a hidden threat, the horse's form untamed passion. This allegorical system transformed the animal kingdom into a vast, living library of human character. So, if our ancestors used these beings to teach lessons about human nature, what happens when the stories themselves begin to fade from memory? The logic behind these mythical forms was deeply rooted in the very soil beneath people's feet and the waters that flowed past their homes. The specific animals chosen for these hybrids were not pulled from thin air. They were the most significant, powerful, or feared creatures in a culture's immediate environment. This was mythology as an ecological mirror. In the sun-baked world of ancient Egypt, the Nile was the source of all life, and its most formidable predator was the crocodile. It is no surprise, then, that the Egyptians envisioned Sobek, a powerful god of fertility and military might, with the head of this fearsome reptile. By giving him a human body, they acknowledged his intelligence and his role in their cosmic order. But his crocodile head was a constant, visceral reminder of the raw, untamable power of the river that sustained them. Far to the north, in the world of Norse myth, the oceans were not life-giving rivers but vast, cold, and treacherous expanses. Sailors spoke of immense, coiling creatures in the deep, and this fear and awe found its ultimate expression in Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, a beast so large it could encircle the entire world and grasp its own tail. This was not just a monster, it was the mythologization of the sea itself, its unpredictable danger and its immense, incomprehensible scale. This pattern repeats itself across the globe. Cultures inland, locked forests and mountains created hybrids with bears, wolves, and eagles, creatures that symbolized the strength and mystery of the wilderness that surrounded them. Island and coastal societies, whose lives were intertwined with the sea, looked to sharks, octopuses, and seabirds, weaving their attributes into their gods and legends. These creatures were a way for people to process and understand the real animals that shared their world, creatures that were both a source of sustenance and a constant threat. By transforming them into mythic beings, they could engage with these forces on a symbolic level, which in turn influenced how they structured their own societies and power hierarchies. A king might be compared to a lion not just for its strength, but because the lion was the apex predator in that region, the ultimate symbol of dominion over a specific landscape. This deep connection between myth and environment raises a fascinating question. If our ancestors used the animals around them to build their symbolic worlds, what happens when that world is turned upside down, when the familiar becomes strange and the stories themselves begin to transform? So the lion was not just a symbol of strength, but the king of a specific, tangible landscape. This deep connection between myth and environment was not lost on the rulers of the ancient world. They understood the power of these symbols and masterfully wove them into the very architecture of their authority, transforming mythical hybrids into potent instruments of political propaganda. A pharaoh of Egypt did not merely build a statue of a sphinx. He became the Sphinx, his own face gazing out from the lion's body, a living declaration that the ruler himself embodied the immense power of the king of beasts and the transcendent wisdom of a celestial guardian. This was not just art, it was a public statement carved in stone, meant to be understood by every citizen. It communicated that the pharaoh was the invincible protector of the kingdom, a being whose authority was as eternal and unshakable as the stone from which he was carved. This same logic echoed through the great palaces of the Assyrian Empire. Here, the Lamassu stood watch. These colossal figures, with the body of a bull, the wings of an eagle, and the crowned head of a king, were placed at every major gateway. They were more than just decoration. Their sheer size was meant to overwhelm any visitor, a physical manifestation of the empire's scale and strength. Their hybrid nature broadcast a clear message that the king they served possessed the brute force of the bull, the far-seeing vision of the eagle, and the divine intellect of a human ruler. They were the ultimate border guards, symbolizing that the king's power protected the civilized world from the chaos that lay beyond. This political weaponization shows that myth was never separate from statecraft. It was the bedrock. By associating themselves with these semi-divine creatures, leaders projected an image of being a necessary bridge, an intermediary between the common people and the gods, and the only force capable of holding the wild at bay. This practice of using myth to consolidate power was not static. It evolved dramatically as empires expanded, cultures collided, and the symbolic language of the hybrid was translated, borrowed, and reinvented across the ancient world. These powerful symbols of kings and gods were never meant to be confined by borders. The logic of the hybrid creature was a living language, one that traveled. It moved along the dusty tracks of the Silk Road, sailed on merchant ships across the Mediterranean, and was carried in the minds of soldiers and storytellers. When these ideas arrived in a new land, they did not remain frozen in their original form. They were adapted, reinterpreted, and reborn to speak to a new audience. Consider the Sphinx. In Egypt, it was a majestic and generally benevolent guardian, a symbol of solar power and royal authority. But when this concept traveled north to Greece, it transformed. The Greek Sphinx retained the lion's body and human head, but it became a fearsome riddler, a monster sent by the gods to punish the city of Thebes. This shift was not random. It reflected a different worldview, one where the universe was often in conflict with humanity, where divine will was mysterious and had to be deciphered. The creature's core hybrid nature remained, but its story was rewritten to fit the new landscape of Greek myth. This process of creative borrowing is even more vivid with the Griffin. This majestic fusion of the eagle, the king of the skies, and the lion, the king of the land, appears in the art of Minoan Crete and in the gold work of ancient Scythia. As the idea of this ultimate guardian beast moved between cultures, its details shifted. Its depiction, its associated lore, all evolved to reflect the values and artistic styles of the people who adopted it. In one place it might guard gold in Hyperborean mountains, in another it might become a symbol of divine power. This was not simple copying, it was a dynamic conversation across continents. These myths were like seeds carried on the wind, but they only grew when planted in the specific soil of a new culture's beliefs, environment, and social needs. This incredible network of shared stories reveals an ancient world far more interconnected than we often assume, a world where symbolic ideas flowed as freely as spices or silk. And this process of transmission and adaptation forces us to ask a deeper question. If the stories could change so dramatically, what about the individual components themselves? What specific meaning was encoded in the choice of an eagle's wing versus a serpent's tail? Every part of a mythical beast was a word in a forgotten language. To understand the whole creature, you first had to learn the meaning of its pieces. The wings of an eagle or falcon were never just for flight. They were a universal emblem of the divine, granting the being the speed to traverse the heavens and the ability to transcend the world of mortals. This is why so many gods and messengers, from the Egyptian Horus to the Greek Nike, were depicted with powerful wings. They were a visual declaration of a celestial nature. Serpentine features carried a deeper, more complex symbolism. A coiling tail or a head crowned with living snakes, like that of Medusa, spoke of chthonic power, a connection to the earth, to fertility, and to the hidden currents of wisdom. Yet this same form could also represent a coiled threat, a silent and sudden danger lurking in the shadows. The serpent was a creature of profound duality, embodying both life-giving knowledge and lethal poison. Then there were the horns of a bull or a ram. These were not mere decoration. In a world dependent on livestock, horns were the ultimate symbol of untamed strength, raw potency, and virility. They connected their wearer to the powerful cycles of nature and were often associated with lunar or solar deities, whose own power waxed and waned with cosmic regularity. By deconstructing these forms, we see a precise symbolic lexicon. The body of a mythical beast becomes a sentence, each anatomical part an adjective or a verb describing its nature and purpose. This ability to read a hybrid creature unlocks its intended function within a story. We can now apply this skill to one of the most ancient and widespread fusions of all, the figure that unites human intellect with the most loyal of animal companions. The serpent slithers through the mythologies of the world with a startling consistency. From the water-rich lands of India, where the Nagas reign as serpentine deities of fertility and hidden wisdom, to the highlands of ancient Mexico, where the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl bestowed the gifts of knowledge and civilization, this creature is far more than a simple reptile. Its ability to shed its skin made it a universal emblem of renewal and rebirth, a cyclical death and resurrection written in its very flesh. Yet it also dwells in the hidden places, in the deep earth and the still waters, connecting it to secrets, to the primal energies of the world below, and to a kind of knowledge that is ancient, potent, and often dangerous. When this powerful animal is fused with a human form, you create a being of immense scope. A Naga king or the god Quetzalcoatl becomes a bridge, a conscious intelligence that can navigate the underworld, walk the earthly plane, and in the case of the feathered serpent, even ascend to the heavens. This hybrid embodies an ambivalent power, one that can bring forth life-giving waters or deliver a fatal strike, a perfect symbol of nature's own dual capacity for creation and destruction. This deep, earth-rooted symbolism of the serpent finds its celestial counterpart in another powerful fusion, where human form takes on the wings of a bird to touch the sky. The sky has always been our limit. When our ancestors looked upward, they saw not an empty expanse, but a realm of pure potential, a domain of gods and cosmic order. It is no surprise that the most enduring hybrids are those that grant access to this celestial sphere, fusing the human form with the majesty of birds. These are not creatures of the shadowy earth, but beings of light and air. The classic image of an angel, for instance, is a human figure made transcendent by vast, powerful wings. This form is a perfect allegory for the soul's highest aspirations, a divine messenger who can bridge the immense gap between heaven and earth. The wings are not merely for travel, they are a symbol of spiritual elevation, of a perspective that sees beyond the immediate and the mundane. This idea was made explicit in ancient Egypt with the concept of the Ba. The Ba was the unique personality of an individual, and after death, it was depicted as a human-headed bird, able to fly free from the confines of the tomb and reunite with the gods. It was the ultimate expression of liberation, the self-taking flight. Yet this longing for the heavens has a dark twin. Not all avian hybrids are benevolent guides. The harpies of Greek myth, with their cruel, vulture-like features and sharp talons, were the personification of destructive, snatching winds. They were not messengers of the gods but agents of punishment, swooping down to steal food and carry away individuals, leaving only desperation in their wake. They represent the terrifying side of transcendence, the storm that can suddenly tear everything away. This duality reveals a complete spectrum of meaning. The bull or lion hybrid is grounded, a symbol of earthly power and kingship. But the bird-human fusion speaks to our deepest yearning for something beyond the physical world, for freedom, for a higher understanding, and for a connection to the divine. It is the symbolic answer to the question of what lies above, just as the serpent answered what lies below. And this ancient language of aspiration finds a surprising echo in the most modern of arenas, where the logic of the hybrid is being reborn in silicon and code. The bull's immense power and vital role in agriculture made it a symbol of both creation and destruction, a duality perfectly captured in its hybrid forms. In the dark heart of the Cretan labyrinth, the Minotaur stood as a monstrous warning. This creature, born from a transgression against the gods, was the ultimate embodiment of untamed, chaotic strength. The labyrinth itself was a marvel of human ingenuity, a physical representation of the civilized mind's attempt to contain the primal rage that threatened its order. The hero Theseus's journey to confront the beast was more than a simple monster hunt. It was an allegory for the constant internal struggle, the need for human reason and courage to face and overcome the brute force lurking within the self. This myth taught that the power of the bull, left unchecked, could become a destructive force that consumes everything. Yet, across the Mediterranean, the very same animal was revered in a completely different light. In the sun-drenched temples of Egypt, the goddess Hathor, often depicted with the gentle head of a cow, was a beacon of life itself. She was the celestial nurse, her horns curving to hold the sun, a symbol of motherhood, music, and cosmic nourishment. Here, the bovine form represented not a monster to be slain, but the source of all fertility and joy. This stark contrast reveals a profound cultural truth. The bull's symbolism was not fixed, it was a narrative tool. Its meaning shifted based on the story a society needed to tell about itself. The bull's strength could be the terrifying rage of the Minotaur, or it could be the stable, life-sustaining power of the plow. This leads us to the ultimate paradox of the bull in the ancient world. It was simultaneously a symbol of indomitable life force and the most sacred of sacrificial offerings. Its immense value is precisely what made its life the ultimate gift to the gods. In this act, the community acknowledged that the very strength which sustained them was a power borrowed from the divine, a cycle of life given and life returned. How could one animal hold such opposing meanings? It is because the bull, in its raw physicality, represented the fundamental forces of existence itself, forces that are both creative and destructive, nurturing and demanding. To understand this is to grasp why the same animal could be both a demon in a maze and a goddess in a temple. The lion's roar echoes not just across the savannah, but through the very architecture of power. When human civilization sought to visualize an authority as absolute and natural as the sun's daily journey, it turned to the lion, fusing its form with human intelligence to create the ultimate symbol of sovereignty. The Great Sphinx of Giza is the undeniable masterwork of this idea, a colossal statement in stone that the pharaoh's power is both terrestrial and celestial, as patient as the desert and as fierce as the king of beasts. But this logic was not confined to the Nile Valley. Far to the east, in the rich tapestry of Hindu tradition, the same fusion erupts in a burst of divine fury. The Narasimha avatar of Vishnu, a magnificent being part man and part lion, appears at a cosmic crossroads. He arrives to confront a demon king protected by a powerful boon, a promise that he could not be killed by man or beast, by day or by night, inside or outside. Narasimha, born at the threshold of twilight, seizes the demon on the doorstep of a palace and tears him apart with his claws. He is the embodiment of a power that operates outside the very framework of reality, a force that transcends all human categories and limitations. The lion's raw ferocity is the instrument, but the human intellect directs it toward a precise, cosmic justice. This is the deeper message of the lion-human hybrid. It is never just about strength. It is about the rightful application of that strength. The courage, the majesty, the untamable will of the lion are seamlessly woven into a divine or royal figure, creating an image of a ruler whose authority is as fundamental and unquestionable as the laws of nature. This symbolic fusion does more than decorate a temple or guard a tomb. It offers a profound insight into how ancient societies understood the mind of a leader, a being in whom raw instinct and supreme reason had to become one. That internal landscape of the human mind is perhaps the most fertile ground for these mythical forms. Long before we had the language of psychology, we had the minotaur in his maze and the werewolf under the full moon. These creatures served as a powerful external vocabulary for the internal struggles every person faces. They gave a face and a form to the parts of ourselves we often try to ignore or lock away. The werewolf is not merely a monster of folklore. It is the embodiment of repressed rage, the sudden, terrifying loss of control when the animalistic urges we have carefully suppressed break through the thin veneer of civilization. It gives a narrative to the fear that our darkest impulses are not external threats, but a part of us waiting for the right trigger. This idea of a hidden self finds another expression in the doppelganger, a figure found in many cultural traditions. This shadowy double represents the parts of our own personality we deny or fear, the qualities we project away from ourselves because we cannot bear to acknowledge them as our own. The encounter with a doppelganger is a confrontation with the self, a moment where the psyche risks being consumed by its own unrecognized reflection. And then there is the centaur, a walking allegory for the human condition itself. Its very body illustrates the perpetual conflict between our higher, rational minds, represented by the human torso, and our lower, instinctual drives, symbolized by the powerful horse's body. This is not a monster to be slain, but a constant tension to be managed. The myth of the noble centaur Chiron shows that the goal is not to destroy the animal half, but to integrate it, to achieve a harmonious balance where wisdom guides strength. By dreaming up these composite beings, our ancestors were demonstrating a profound, intuitive grasp of the psyche's structure. They were creating a symbolic language to discuss the complex, often contradictory, nature of human consciousness, mapping the inner world with a startling clarity that would take centuries for formal science to rediscover. This ancient quest for inner balance finds its ultimate expression in the mysterious laboratories of the alchemists. Their work was never just about turning lead into gold. It was a profound spiritual metaphor, and their ultimate creation was often a being of pure synthesis. They called it the rebis, the double thing, a magnificent figure that was fully male and fully female, sometimes adorned with wings and crowned with the sun and moon. This was the symbol of the magnum opus, the great work completed. It represented the perfect union of all opposites, spirit and matter, conscious and unconscious, the divine spark and the mortal coil. The human-animal hybrids we have explored follow this very same symbolic logic. They are not grotesque accidents, but purposeful designs pointing toward a state of wholeness. The goal of the alchemical process was not to destroy the base elements, the lead of our primal nature, but to purify and integrate it with the gold of our higher consciousness. In this light, the Minotaur is not merely a monster to be slain. He is the unrefined shadow self, the raw instinct trapped in the labyrinth of the mind, awaiting integration. The noble centaur Chiron is the successful embodiment of this process, where animal strength is guided by human wisdom. These myths, like the alchemical diagrams, are maps for a profound inner transformation. They chart a course from a state of internal conflict to one of unified being. This timeless pursuit of a complete self, where no part of us is denied or locked away, echoes powerfully into our own time. We may not seek the philosopher's stone, but the journey toward understanding and harmonizing the different parts of ourselves remains one of humanity's most enduring quests. The same archetypes that gave us the Minotaur and the Sphinx now wear spandex and appear on the silver screen. Our modern mythmakers in comics and films have instinctively reached for this ancient symbolic language, creating a new pantheon of heroes and villains that speak directly to contemporary anxieties. Spider-Man is not merely a man with insect-like powers. He is a perfect modern hybrid, embodying the double-edged sword of scientific progress. His abilities are a gift and a curse, a direct result of a technological accident, reflecting our collective wonder and fear about a world transformed by science. Similarly, the mutants of the X-Men universe are walking allegories for the fear of the other, and the fear of the other within ourselves. Their very DNA marks them as different, forcing them to navigate a world that fears and persecutes them for their unique natures. This is not so different from the ancient tales of heroes born of gods and mortals, beings who are never fully at home in either world. These modern stories explore the profound challenge of integrating extraordinary power or difference into a human life, a theme as old as mythology itself. The classic monsters have also been reborn to fit our times. Werewolf narratives are constantly recontextualized, now often serving as metaphors for illness, hidden trauma, or the parts of our identity we struggle to control. Vampires shift in their symbolism, sometimes representing aristocratic decay, other times the terrifying allure of addiction or the outsider. They are no longer just creatures of the night, they are vessels for our current cultural fears. This persistence proves that the human mind still processes its deepest questions through these composite forms. We are still using the logic of the hybrid to map the uncharted territory of our own potential, asking what it means to be human in a world of accelerating change. The labyrinth is now the city, the Minotaur is a misunderstood mutant, and the hero's journey is one of self-acceptance. Our minds are not blank slates waiting for culture to write its stories. They come preloaded with a unique operating system, one that seems almost perfectly designed to generate and remember these hybrid forms. Cognitive science reveals that we are hardwired for myth-making. One of the most compelling theories is called hyperactive agency detection, or HAD. This is the idea that our ancestors, living in a world full of very real threats, evolved to err on the side of caution. Hearing a rustle in the bushes, it was far safer to assume it was a predator with intent, a conscious agent, than to dismiss it as the wind. This instinct to see faces in the clouds and intention in the storm is the very foundation of personification. We instinctively project consciousness onto the forces of nature, and what better way to relate to a conscious force than to give it a face, a body, a form we can understand. A lightning bolt is abstract and terrifying, but a god who hurls that lightning from a mountaintop. That is a being we can story, we can appease, we can comprehend. This neural wiring explains the very first step of giving the invisible a visible form. But how do we build that form? This is where another fundamental cognitive process comes into play, something called conceptual blending. Our brains are brilliant fusion engines, constantly taking different ideas and mashing them together to create new meaning. We do this every day without thinking. Think of the simple phrase, "that lawyer is a shark." You instantly understand the concept. You are not picturing a man with gills. Your mind has seamlessly blended the concept of a human lawyer with the predatory, relentless nature of a shark to create a new, powerful, and instantly memorable composite idea. The creation of a Sphinx is this same cognitive act, scaled up to a mythic level. Our ancestors needed a way to make an abstract concept like royal power or divine protection concrete. So their minds blended the most powerful land animal they knew, the lion, with the intelligence of a human ruler. The result was not a random monster. It was a cognitive shortcut, a living emblem that perfectly encapsulated a complex idea. This biological basis is why you find these hybrids everywhere, from the frozen north to the deepest jungles. They are not just cultural artifacts passed from one society to another. They are the natural output of the human brain itself, a universal language born from the very way we think. Beyond the psychological and the political, these forms represent a breathtaking leap of artistic ambition. The human hand, guided by a mind seeking to capture the ineffable, found its ultimate challenge in the hybrid figure. To successfully merge a lion's powerful shoulder with the graceful line of a human arm, or to carve the knowing eyes of a god into the head of a jackal, required more than just technical skill. It demanded a deep understanding of anatomy, both real and imagined, and a visionary sense of design. The result was a form that was inherently captivating, a visual puzzle that drew the eye and held it. The sheer beauty and complexity of these creations were not accidental byproducts of their meaning. They were central to their power. An Egyptian artisan painting the falcon-headed Horus was not merely illustrating a god. He was exploring the elegant curve where a beak meets a human brow, creating a face that felt both ancient and eternally serene. The massive Lamassu guarding Assyrian palaces were feats of engineering as much as art, their colossal, winged forms carved from a single block of stone, designed to be viewed from both the front and the side, presenting the perfect composite being from every angle. This was art as a divine act, a way to make the conceptual tangible in the most visually stunning way possible. The artistic impulse ensured that the symbol was not just understood, but felt. A purely human statue might convey kingship, but a sphinx, with its impossible body, conveyed a kingship that transcended nature itself. The lasting legacy of these creatures is etched as much in their aesthetic impact as in their symbolic meaning. We remember them not only for what they represented, but for how they looked, for the awe they inspired in the human heart simply by being seen. This drive to create beauty from symbolic fusion laid the groundwork for their most enduring role as the unforgettable protagonists in the stories that would define entire civilizations. A sudden storm sinking ships or a mysterious illness sweeping through a village demanded an explanation. In a world without meteorological data or germ theory, our ancestors turned to a more narrative form of understanding. They created mythic beasts to personify these terrifying, invisible forces. A hurricane was not just a confluence of wind and pressure. It was the breath of a furious dragon, a conscious entity with a will of its own. The deep, dark ocean, a place of unimaginable pressure and strange life, was the domain of the kraken or leviathan, colossal beings whose movements could explain sudden whirlpools or the disappearance of entire vessels. This was not a flight of fancy, but a functional fantasy. By giving a name and a form to a plague or an earthquake, people transformed an abstract, chaotic event into a story with a potential cause and, crucially, a potential resolution. If a drought was caused by a greedy demon hoarding the rain clouds, then perhaps a specific ritual or offering could appease it. This narrative framework imposed a sense of order and even agency on a world that often felt random and cruel. It was a profound, early attempt to map the terrifying wilderness of the unknown, using the only tools available, the language of symbol and story. This instinct to find a face for the faceless is a deep part of our own cognitive wiring. Their bodies are a living map of the cosmos. These hybrid beings often stand precisely where one world ends and another begins, serving as the ultimate mediators between realms we can see and those we can only feel. The Sphinx does not merely stand in the desert. It guards the threshold, the entrance to a sacred city or the path to esoteric knowledge, challenging all who wish to pass with a riddle that separates the unwise from the worthy. Far to the south, along the life-giving Nile, the jackal-headed Anubis performs a similar function, but for the most profound of all journeys. He is the psychopomp, the guide of souls, his form a perfect bridge between the tangible world of the living and the mysterious, unseen domain of the dead. His animal aspect, the jackal, was a creature observed at the edges of cemeteries, a natural guardian of transitions, while his human torso grants him the intelligence and compassion needed to shepherd the deceased through the final, great passage. This role of the threshold guardian is a universal one. In the ancient traditions of Aboriginal Australia, the rainbow serpent resides within the waterholes and rivers, the very source of all life. This immense serpentine being is not just an animal. It is a creative force connecting the physical landscape to the timeless, spiritual dimension of the dreamtime. Its movements are said to have carved the rivers and valleys, and its presence ensures the land's fertility, making it the ultimate mediator between the spiritual foundation of the world and its physical manifestation. The logic behind this is beautifully precise. A being that is part human and part animal is literally composed of elements from different existential categories. The human half represents civilization, intellect, and order, the world we have built. The animal half embodies the wild, instinctual, and untamed forces of nature. By fusing them, mythology creates a unique entity that belongs to both spheres and can therefore operate in both. It can translate, facilitate, and guard the delicate boundaries that keep the cosmic order intact. What does it mean, then, when the guardian itself is not a fixed statue, but a living, breathing participant in the ritual of crossing? The human face gazing out from a lion's body is never a neutral portrait. It is a deliberate statement, and its gender is a crucial part of the message. The choice of a male or female visage in these composite forms often reveals a culture's deepest attitudes toward masculine and feminine power, codifying them into unforgettable mythic lore. Consider the archetypal male hybrids, the Minotaur, the Centaur, the Werewolf. These figures are almost universally embodiments of raw, untamed physicality. Their stories are saturated with aggression, brute strength, and the volatile force of pure instinct. They represent a masculinity that is potent but perilous, a power that must be either conquered, as with the Minotaur in his labyrinth, or masterfully integrated, as with the noble centaur Chiron. The animal half in these cases amplifies the physical, the primal, the aspect of man that exists before civilization imposes its rules. It is a warning and a lesson about the inherent danger of strength unchecked by reason. But what happens when the human half is female? The symbolic language shifts dramatically. Female hybrids frequently channel a different, but equally formidable kind of power. The sirens of Greek myth, with their enchanting bird-like forms, did not wield physical force. Their weapon was a dangerous allure, a mystical knowledge of song that could lure sailors to their doom. They represented a power rooted in attraction and hidden wisdom, a threat that operated on the psyche rather than the body. Similarly, the Lamia, a serpentine figure from later folklore, embodied a tragic ferocity often tied to themes of loss and revenge. Even the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, depicted with the head of a lioness, showcases this duality. She was a deity of such immense, destructive fury that she nearly wiped out humanity, yet she was also invoked as a fierce protector against illness and a bringer of healing. Her lioness nature expressed a ferocity that was both creative and destructive, a force of nature that could not be simply labeled as good or evil. These gendered archetypes were far more than simple storytelling. They were a primary method for societies to process and transmit their norms and their fears. The male hybrid often mythologized the fear of internal chaos, the beast within that threatened social order. The female hybrid, however, frequently externalized a fear of the unknown or the untamable aspects of the feminine itself, its mysterious knowledge, its captivating allure, and its capacity for a protective rage as fierce as any lioness guarding her cubs. By projecting these qualities onto a composite being, ancient cultures could explore the complexities of human nature in a safe, symbolic space, giving form to the abstract forces that shaped their world and their understanding of each other. The instinct to see a predator in the shadows may have kept our ancestors alive, but the stories they built upon that instinct ensured their legacy. These vivid tales of hybrid creatures were more than just fireside entertainment. They were a sophisticated cognitive toolkit for survival. A myth about a river spirit with the claws of a bear and the face of a man was not a random invention. It was a highly effective, emotionally charged warning label for a treacherous part of the forest or a stretch of water where currents were known to pull people under. By packaging critical environmental knowledge within a terrifying and memorable narrative, communities could teach their children which areas to avoid and which animals to respect, long before a personal encounter could prove fatal. This system of symbolic thinking was a profound adaptation. The ability to imagine a potential threat, a man-bear lurking just beyond the firelight, and to communicate that possibility through a compelling story, allowed for the transfer of vital information across generations. This was not just about physical survival. These myths also encoded essential social rules. A story about a many-headed beast that punishes those who hoard food served as a powerful lesson in cooperation, reinforcing the behaviors that strengthened the group and ensured its collective resilience. The logic of the mythic beast, therefore, may be etched into the deepest layers of our minds, a testament to how imagination itself became one of humanity's most crucial tools for navigating a dangerous and unknown world. Perhaps the most radical logic embedded in these ancient forms is their quiet rebellion against a world of rigid categories. The human-animal hybrid is a living argument against the idea that we stand apart from and above the rest of nature. Long before modern philosophy, these myths presented a world of profound interconnection, where boundaries were permeable and essence was shared. They proposed that the life force animating a wolf, an eagle, or a serpent is not so different from the consciousness that animates us. We share the same instincts for survival, the same drives for territory and companionship, the same raw energies that pulse through the wild. The werewolf does not just represent a man becoming a beast. It embodies the unsettling truth that the beast was always there, a fundamental part of the human animal. This worldview stands in stark contrast to a more recent Western tradition that sought to place humanity on a pedestal, separate from and dominant over a soulless natural world. That perspective, born from certain post-Enlightenment ideologies, saw the environment as a resource to be managed and conquered. But the older, mythic view, echoed in traditions from Aboriginal Dreamtime to Amazonian shamanism, understood that we are not merely observers of nature. We are participants deeply embedded within its complex web, In an era defined by ecological crisis, this ancient logic rings with a startling and urgent clarity. The stories of our ancestors, filled with beings that are both human and other, offer a forgotten blueprint for coexistence. They remind us that respecting the bear or the river is not just a practical necessity, but a spiritual and ethical one, because in a very real sense, we are honoring a part of ourselves. These fantastical creatures, born from the deepest wells of human imagination, may hold a key not just to understanding our past, but to navigating our future. Each of these hidden logics is a single thread in a much grander tapestry. To see only the political meaning of the Sphinx, or only its psychological shadow, is to miss the full picture. Its true power emerges from the convergence, the moment when the artistic ambition of its sculpture meets the ecological reality of the lion, the political need of the pharaoh, and the universal human archetype of the guardian. This intricate interplay is what makes these creatures feel so profoundly real and resonant across millennia. They are not simple symbols with one job. They are complex cultural artifacts designed to satisfy a multitude of human needs at once. A single mythic beast could be a lesson in ethics, a map of the local environment, a piece of state propaganda, and a guide for the soul, all wrapped into one unforgettable form. This multidimensional nature is their genius. They provided a unified framework for understanding everything from the roar of a lion on the savannah to the rumble of thunder in the sky, from the fear of a king's wrath to the terror of one's own inner darkness. They wove the external world and the internal landscape into a single, coherent story, offering a way to define our place within the vast, bewildering cosmos. This deep, synthesized logic is their ultimate secret, the reason they have never truly left us, and the key to understanding why we still feel that strange, familiar pull when we look into the stone eyes of a creature that could never be. The journey through these hidden logics reveals that mythic beasts are far more than simple fantasy. They are the profound and sophisticated creations of the human mind, designed to explore the deepest corners of our psychology, to legitimize the structures of our societies, and to give voice to our artistic and spiritual yearnings. These creatures were a foundational language, a way to process a world that was both beautiful and terrifying. The Sphinx did not just guard a road, it posed a question about the very nature of humanity. The werewolf's curse was not merely a story of transformation, but a powerful metaphor for the parts of ourselves we fear and struggle to control. From the political power of the Lamassu to the divine balance of Ganesha, these hybrids speak a universal language of symbol and story that continues to resonate across the centuries. They are a testament to our endless creativity and our persistent need to find meaning in the world around us. As we conclude, remember that the next time you encounter a griffin in a story, a centaur in a film, or a naga in a sacred text, you are not just looking at a monster. You are looking at a key, a deeply encoded key to understanding the ancient, complex, and endlessly fascinating human heart. If this exploration into the meaning behind the myths resonated with you, we would love to hear about it. Share your own favorite mythic beast in the comments below, and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of historical mystery.